Be confused which side of the ring the flags are on between here and Richtown.
I know. Richtown, we're always looking for them. Where'd they go? Oh, I guess you didn't get my email.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just emailed you. Like,
2 seconds ago.
sorry.
I don't know if it's yeah, they do, but we're still going.
You ready?
Ready.
We're zooming in for people to.
Good morning, everyone. Join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, first thing we're going to start with is the airport. And I think, Chris, if you want to come up. And our discussion today, Chris, is just what it would look like if we were to consider taking the airport back over and dissolving that board. You know, as you're familiar with, I sent you an email. I mean, this is month one of the year. It's just going to continue with some of the issues. So if you could sort of just give us like an outline or what it would look like.
Okay. Well, the revised code doesn't actually address how you dissolve a board. So when the code doesn't actually address it, then we have to go like a rule of reason here. So there's an old AG's opinion back from 1970 that says if the board were to dissolve, you want to go through the court and do like a declaratory judgment action, which is similar to what we did with Brady Lake and Franklin Township when all that property transferred. So in this situation, one framework we could work under, if that board out there is intending to dissolve, let's have them adopt a resolution giving you notice of intent to dissolve, then submit that to you, and then you could go from there and determine whether or not you want to accept that dissolution. In the meantime, maybe have that board come here, and you're gonna have to go over all the liabilities and assets, because all those are gonna have to transfer. I know probably Todd can get better than me, but I don't know what their liabilities are, but the assets are fairly straightforward, you know, the deeds and all that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what type of timetable you want to work on, but if you were to accept the dissolution, the way we want to work it is have them transfer the property first. Then I would file a deck action in court, giving the okay, and ask the court to approve everything. In the meantime, before they actually officially dissolve, say they pick the date, maybe July 1st, whatever. Before then, we want them to sign all the deeds over to the county. So record all those, then we get the blessing of the court for everything, both the transfer of all the assets and then also the liabilities. So that's the one thing that might, I don't want to say concern us, but we want to check with the creditors just to make sure, because I don't know what kind of debts you're looking at. All those are become the county's debts. And the FAA, you mentioned, we want to make sure the FAA is okay with the county being the sole authority instead of the airport board.
You know, Chris, it's always been my understanding that we're gonna have to do this whether we want to or not, because, right? I mean,
Well, somebody.
our decision is, do we wanna make the airport, you know, productive and,
Yeah.
you know, or do we wanna just do away with it? But I mean, don't we have to take it over no matter what if they can't pay the bills?
Right, well, yeah.
Well, we have an option, and that is to continue what we're doing now, which
That's not an option.
it's not a good option for us. I mean, I think I shared with you and Tony, I received that on Saturday. I mean, we're in one month out of the year thinking, and it's like.
That's not an option.
That's what they were talking about when Bonner was here last week.
Yeah, so in our opinion, you know, we most likely, like you said, we gotta do our due diligence, but it's not really an option. And then Todd, do you know what our liability is as far as the FAA loans that we sort of co-signed
I've had
for?
several conversations with the FAA, and that will be a fairly seamless process, in part because we already are the backer of the airport. So that's not to be worried about. the county's the largest creditor to the airport. So essentially, we're writing off our own debt, so to speak, on that. And the next biggest aspect is the fixed-based operator contract.
Say that one more time, please.
The fixed-based operator contract, which is Mr. Bonner, and that will be bought out.
Yeah. There's two components to it. It is, in my understanding, it is to dissolve the airport board and get the airport back to us, but then we have to buy the FBO. Mr. Bonner is interested in selling that and getting out from that.
Well, that would be part of settling the liabilities. You know, the airport board has a contract in place with the fixed-based operator. When you dissolve the airport board, we could either take over the contract, which I don't think we want to, or we could pay out.
Do you know what the price tag is on that?
I have a guess. I'd rather not say an open session though, partly because it is just a guess.
Okay.
You would need to bring an appraiser in. And then ultimately, if an agreement can't be reached with Mr. Bonner, then the probate judge sets the value.
I found out from Corsa will not, they do not carry insurance on an airport operation. So if we become operators, we have to seek out our own insurance policy for that. So it would be helpful if we got their current, copies of their current policies like that, to be able to look and see what we have to do. Of course, it does cover the property and general liability, like if people fall or trip out there, and the contents. And then we're also gonna need to know what contents that we are or would be going to insure. So if we become the operators, the day we take that over, we have to have the insurance policy in place. So before we do, get that too far down the road, we're gonna wanna go out and try and get policy quotes from people or whatever, so that we've got that in place before you even think about the day that the operations would turn over.
Joanne, are there insurance companies that kind of specialize in this kind of stuff?
That we didn't get that far when we
I
were
bet there
checking.
are.
That I'm guessing, I hope anyway, because I think that would,
You're talking for the flight side of things, Joanne?
the operation of the airport
Yeah.
is what it is, yeah.
Yeah, because other counties own airports, so I'm sure we can find
I
out.
mean, they have
that-
current policies, which
Yeah.
we have what they spend on them.
So that's the insurance side that I have information on.
Of course, it would do like the hangar, that type of thing. Is that what I'm hearing? Or no?
What did you say, the hangars?
Of course, it would do like the buildings.
They would do the buildings, yes.
So it's.
And we,
again,
that's
it's
that's
the-
part of what we
yeah.
have to inventory out, is what is viable and.
They just
some
don't have
of
the
those-
liability part of it.
Pardon me?
For
The flights.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that.
Of course, it would take care of me, like personally, someone fell down and hurt themselves.
Yeah.
We already have that piece covered.
Mhm.
We already have that plan out right now.
That's,
That's part of it. They have it,
Yeah.
we
Corsa.
cover the board's insurance.
Okay,
So by rights, it will fall to us if something else happened.
Okay.
The deep-
if there's a fire on the
Right
building,
now,
fire in the building,
I don't know, I'll have to check that with Michelle, because I don't believe we have the buildings covered.
okay.
They insure.
Land.
The airport
land is
itself
ours.
only owns I call them the crappy hangars, but the crappy
Right.
hangars. The main building that you think of as the airport is actually the fixed-based operators.
Okay,
And
that's
he
Bonner's.
insures that as a separate item, along with the nice hangar that's right next to it. The north side is all private. We still won't have anything to do
Yeah.
with that.
So really, we don't have really a lot to insure at this point until we work out something, then we'd have to insure the flight center or the FBO.
I would hope it all happens. We take it all over on the same day. I wouldn't want to piecemeal
Yeah, I
it
wouldn't
out.
want to piecemeal it either. It'd have to be like a package.
And it seems like everybody is wanting to reach agreements so that all the dates could be set the same. So it was a very easy thing for a judge to have to do. Obviously, the judge comes more into play when there's disagreement,
Yeah, and I have to say, I know, the airport board had a meeting probably about a month ago with the FAA, and I wasn't able to make it, but one of the things they emphasized is the FAA is is very excited to hear that the county has an interest of taking it back, because they've seen the struggles that they've had just to get match money, and so, I know it appears that the FAA is on board with this, as well as their airport board is. They're all in agreement, because the struggles are real, and it just, over time, just keeps getting worse for them.
Brenda, had you said last week that it would be easier for the county to get funds, governmental type funds and grants than it is for the board?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because they don't have A, the income for it, and B, they don't have the match funds. Every time they come to us.
Okay.
So.
So it'd be easier.
Yes, it would be easier for,
Well, even direct state funding, like we were talking to the representatives and whatnot, I mean, the county is just much better leverage to talk to those people than
Okay.
the airport board, because it's a voluntary board.
and like I said, we're looking at over a multi-million-dollar asset that has a budget of a little over 100,000. I mean, you're not gonna be able to maintain an asset of that nature. So. Okay, so it sounds like, Chris, we need to get with the airport then, about the liabilities and the assets, first of all. I mean, I'm sure they would adopt a resolution with the intent to dissolve.
We have all the liabilities and assets.
We do, okay.
Yeah. The key, I guess, is the first step, if it is actually gonna happen, is the airport board passing a resolution to dissolve. How long would it be from the time they pass that till the time the county would assume control, let's say? Is it a short time, or are we talking 6 months?
It'd be whatever you like it to be.
Okay.
I mean, if their board is willing to dissolve fairly quick, it's a question when you would want to accept everything. So I don't know what kind of timetable you're on, but
So I think the next step is to
It's the,
decide whether you really want to do it, and then go out to the board and say, we'd like you to pass this on this particular.
But there again, though, if we're gonna do the FBO as a package, we'll have to start also working that side so that we can see the whole picture of what the true cost will be.
Should they have the airport board pass a resolution to dissolve before they start talking to Mr. Bonner, after?
I think you can do everything simultaneously. And if that board's on the same page as all of you with dissolving, it's just a question of getting them to adopt the resolution and then you accepting it. The biggest thing would be transferring, not the biggest thing, but getting the deeds to transfer all the property. I don't know how many separate parcels I have, but it's gotta be at least about
14, yeah.
14.
There might not be quite that many, but it's close.
And then, Chris, would you guys prepare the deed for us then to transfer for
Well,
them?
since, we technically, we don't represent the airport board, but we do. I mean, unofficially, we work with them.
Uh-huh.
So to avoid any type of conflict, I wonder if we should just maybe go through, uptown, the title company, have somebody outside prepare the deeds.
Mhm.
That way, get us away from it until it's transferred to the board. Just a thought.
Good
rather
thought.
than-
It needs to be at arm's length, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it'd be better.
Okay.
I mean, rather than we prepare the deed.
Sure.
But you'll review it for
Oh, yeah,
us.
absolutely. It'd just be a basic,
Yeah.
they got a general warranty deed with their property. I can't remember. 'Cause
There's 2 parcels that the county actually put restrictions on. So again, we're the biggest obstacle, so to speak. We can remove ourselves from that. There's 2 parcels that have deed restrictions on them, but we're the ones that put the deed restrictions.
And we can remove those easily if we want.
Yeah. But coming back to you, basically.
What are the
probably would remove
restrictions,
them.
Todd?
The one parcel has a deed restriction that it cannot be used in conjunction with the expansion of the runway, which it never would need to be, but that wording is on the parcel transfer.
Is that the one behind the building that we own?
Justice Center, yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? Mr. Bonner brought up about some deed or something that was supposed to do. Do you remember hearing that?
That did all get taken care of.
It did?
Yeah.
Okay, because he said that he thought it never got filed, but
No,
it
there
did?
was-
Oh, okay.
There was a little bit of gamesmanship that occurred during the time, but it was all handled properly. That was before even I came, but I've looked at all those records.
So basically, we have the list of liabilities and assets, but is that a current list? Because, that,
I mean, yeah,
they gave us
it's,
one,
you know, I mean, like, the electric, they're gonna have a new bill every month, but we know who it's with. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, we're their biggest creditor. Their hangars are leased month to month.
Yeah.
And then they have the ongoing, fixed base operator contract. And that's the bulk of it, then the loan to the county.
okay,
So,
which then we would just write off.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do we have to decide, I'm assuming this is part of the decision making going forward, if we're gonna operate the airport or if we're gonna have someone else operate it?
well, you're gonna operate it. The question is whether you hire out a fixed-based operator. Fixed-based operator contracts are as varied as there are airports. Some airports have the fixed-based operator do a multitude of things, and others have fixed-based operators do very little. That's something that's gonna need worked out, and for that, you're gonna have to have discussions with perhaps the old fixed-based operator, get his thoughts. You're gonna hire an airport manager, get their thoughts as to what they wanna do versus what they like. You know, at some point though, yes, you have to have that.
Now, how could we envision internal services being involved with that particular project? Because that's why I asked Joanne to be here.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
So-
sort of a unique project, but at the same time, it's gonna be an asset of ours,
it's
so.
somewhat of the board's pleasure, but there's a lot of things that need done. And of course, you saw the fuel tank. It took volunteer board a year and a half, and it still wasn't quite right. Joanna's gonna do that much more efficiently, much more professionally. You know what I mean? I mean, it's gonna get done right. So in terms of some of the repairs that need done, in terms of the hangar, the asphalt, all those type of things, that's where Joanne's gonna come in, write the request for proposals, accept the bids, bid it out, you know, that type of thing. That's gonna be, one of the main strengths of the county is that we have a staff that handles that type of thing professionally. The other issue is there is maintenance on the airport. They have a part-time groundskeeper. Whether that would become under the direction of maintenance, or whether that person would come under the direction of an airport manager if you hired it right away. I mean, those are things you have to decide. But it's possible that mowing, et cetera, might fall under there even if they have the person to do it. But the big thing right away is gonna be the repairs and replacements that need done, if that's what the board wants to do. And Jillian obviously would be writing and administering this contract.
So are we fairly clear on the steps and the order that they're going to be in? Because I think that's really important. And as far as the timeline, I know no one can say exactly. But in my opinion, it needs to be done as soon as possible because the way January was, we don't want those expenses.
And it's just gonna
be. The longer we go on, the more money we're gonna be paying.
Well, and here's the other thing, in March 1st, we have the tax bill due, and it's not included in there.
Well, you're
So,
making people angry right now because they're not getting paid that you would like to have the assistance of in the future. I mean, you're just
Todd,
buying ill will with the excess
are you
time.
saying that Thursday we should, pass a motion to go ahead and fund what they're claiming they're short now to fund those bills? Or are you saying, hold off? I know they have like 20-some thousand, but then Homer said that the board voted not to really.
They don't wanna get down to zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
at the same point
you
in
know,
time-
again, in an ideal world, the board would come up with its plan. And if your plan is 8 months away, then yes, something needs done in the meantime. If your plan is 2 months away and you talk to those creditors, then perhaps something can be worked out to where the county can finally pay it when the transfer actually happens. You know, I mean, it's gonna have to be played by ear as you guys decide your time frame.
Well, I looked at some of those invoices and they're like months and months old, and that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I think our desire is, well, not only our desire, but we feel like we need to take this back. We don't want to upset a bunch of those vendors to where they won't deal with us.
And the nice thing about the penny bills is that is the reason for the board to dissolve. I mean, it's clear that the airport can't function.
And the point of the matter is, we're gonna pay it regardless, you pay it today. You know, like I said, I looked at some of those and they're like 6, 7 months old.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good situation, and like I said, I don't wanna upset those vendors to where they won't have anything to do with us when we take it back.
Yeah, you don't want to burn your bridges right as we're trying to enter the firm.
So do you think on Thursday we can pass something to fund?
Yeah.
Sooner the better.
Yeah, the vendor's already ticked off. I mean, if you waited 6 months to pay my bill, I'd be ticked off too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna do it, if whether we do it now or we do it when this happens, it's foolish to wait till then, and it's ours anyway.
Yeah. So Todd, can you put together?
We can work it up. Does the board want to leave a particular cash balance in place?
If, how much does it, they're not paying their bills now.
Right.
Are they
Well,
paying
they're
any bills?
They're paying some
Electric,
with what
heat,
comes in. They're
gas?
picking and choosing which ones though.
Yeah,
I do too.
I'm with Vicky.
As I'm
Let's
looking
get,
at
take care of it.
I
Yeah,
see where
because-
one is a partial payment of $16,000 that's on their not to pay list, but partial payment of what is
What?
the exact amount? You know, how much is owed?
Yeah.
If this is just a partial.
Yeah, what's a
We-
partial,
you
what,
need
it
the
doesn't
whole-
say what it's for?
And then March Madness.
It said state stand-wide metal projects jet A tank.
Well,
That's a tank that's not working?
what is it?
Stand-wide metal products, it's jet A tank, partial payment due of $16,899.21.
That's the new tank.
That's the new tank
That's not working?
that we
No,
have
it's
funded.
working.
Everything.
So,
That we
but what I'm
funded,
saying is-
gave
What's the
more.
whole payment?
what is the rest of it? If just on this month, they have a partial of 16, is there?
An additional balance.
Dick,
Because when
you-
you say partial, it means
Right.
there's a remaining balance.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. Somewhere
Or-
along the line, we should get the whole amount.
Or they paid the initial.
So part of
and
it-
This is the balance. That's what I suspect. Because
Yeah.
the initial tank was $32,000.
So they had to pay something up
They had
front.
to
Well, they
Yeah.
had to,
Yeah.
to get it
The whole,
done.
this is finishing.
That's my guess. I'm only surmising.
Yeah, just,
We can't pay directly on their behalf, can we, Chris?
No.
We have to just fund them and instruct
They
them.
pay it.
We just want to word very carefully that this money is expected to pay all of these
Yep.
bills, not to be held
nothing.
in reserve. further.
Well, they have 10,000 in reserve now?
Can we put that specific details
Absolutely.
in
Can you
the
attach that list
entry?
as the exhibit and say, these are the bills that are to be paid?
Well, that's what we want
Paid now.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have 10,000 in
Is that
reserve,
okay,
you
Chris?
said?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, be specific.
yeah, Chris says to be as specific as possible.
That's what I'm
Can you
saying,
bring
and
that to us Thursday?
Like I
Have
said,
the-
if they're gonna have to get through 8 months, obviously they need a little bit larger reserve than if they have to get through 2. I mean, that's what I'm trying to
And the
get to
taxes
is.
have to be.
And
You got
taxes
taxes
have to
coming
be due,
Yeah.
yeah. So they should have enough to pay the taxes and.
Cost 12,000. I mean, we have all their expenses.
Wouldn't it be better just to wait as they come due rather than give them the money for that and hope that they're gonna do that?
Not hope.
Exactly, that's what I mean, so we take care of this, and then come March,
Right.
we okay the money for the taxes, and we give the I'd rather
Yeah, we can
do it
however the board
sections
wants.
versus,
Right.
And I don't know if you want these tacked on as the loan that then gets written off if we do plan to take over. I don't know if you just want to give them blank checks. to-
Is there any
to carry
advantage?
it.
Well, no, Chris said that, when we passed the journal entry to fund this, that we have an attached list, a breakdown of
Right.
exactly what they're to pay with those funds.
Mhm.
So there's no, oh, well, this happened, so we had to pay this instead. It has to be paid for what we designate.
And also, we know we're not gonna get it back, but do we word it as a loan? Just
The
so we
only-
finalize everything? that we
Yeah,
give
what's
that
the
loan?
advantage? Maybe
The
there's
only
an
advantage to the loan, and I've never gotten a firm answer, is that the county writing off portions of the loan, it's possible that actually counts as a match on future grants.
Oh, that would-
that'd be a great idea.
that would be good.
Let's do it.
Which is part of why we've kept, I mean, we've known we're never gonna get paid back. Now, whether that's true if we're writing it off to ourselves, I'm not sure. I mean, but
Well,
I
it
can try and follow up.
I would think that that would count. I mean, the point is, we gave out the money to someone else that we did not get paid back for, so I would think that it should be considered.
And then added in part of that will be the employees that are paying those bills and doing that with their PERS. I see there's some of them that are PERS people that have to be added into the money.
The loan.
As well. Because they're gonna, they're gonna want money for their work that they're doing up until the time that those bills are all
Exactly.
paid.
So as much as we need to, as much as they need to write off, and if we get a grant match for that, that would behoove us to do that.
But that's all things that we would have to discuss speaking of employees, if we would
Do they-
retain
I,
the current employees, if they would stay on until the transition.
The airport itself, I believe, only employs 2 part-time people.
Yeah, that Karen Stecco
And the fixed base operator employs additional.
right?
and Troy, he's the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bonner, how many employees do you have for the FBO?
3,
3?
not really, 2 mechanics, and I had a secretary in there in the office, and she's since moved back up to PSI. So there's 2 there now, 2 full-time people in the shop. And as far as I know, Karen and the guy that mows the grass and plows the snow, he's a new employee, but that's one employee I know of.
Yeah, so I thought Troy and Karen.
Karen's really good over the years.
And that's, yeah.
So, Mr. Bonner, are you actually pay them now, they're your employees?
Mhm.
The
Well,
maintenance,
it's the FBO,
Yeah.
not the guy that mows the grass or carries
Yeah.
backhoe.
the airport itself pays 2 part-time people. And they're not even, they're not even 20 hours every week. It's kind of, they
Okay.
work as they work.
And
And
they-
Mr. Bonner, as a fixed base operator, has the maintenance area that hires 2 mechanics.
So just to recap, Chris and Todd, can you recap what are the steps that we need to take at this point in time?
I think we need to have the board of Portsmouth Regional Airport Authority trustees pass a resolution of an intent to dissolve and get that to this board. Then you probably want to get at least a board president, maybe some other folks into a public meeting to go over the details. And then if you're in agreement to accept their dissolution, they need to pass another resolution designating when that date is going to be. So whether that's April 15th or June 15th, whatever, pick a date certain and have them actually adopt the resolution saying we're going to dissolve effective, say, June 1st of 2021. And then between that time, you want them to sign over all the deeds to the Board of Commissioners, all their assets. And then I'll file a deck action in court, get the court to approve everything. But we can transfer the deeds prior to the court actually approving.
And then I can get a hold of Homer today to get a copy of their insurance, Joanne, just to see who they
So
currently
they
have.
currently have, and then, like I said, we'll call around and.
And then in the meantime, we'll need to get with Mr. Bonner too, because we want to do that simultaneously with the airport board dissolving and then the FPO.
I got a copy of that in my office here, if you want to see it.
Of what?
The FBO agreement. It's pretty detailed. 15 or 16 pages.
Yeah. Todd, do you have that?
Do you have the
We
revised
have
one
it.
with, or is that just the minimum? I guess that's the minimum standards that, the board, Chris and I revised a couple years ago.
No, I might not have that. I got the master one.
Okay.
Mr. Bonner, can you get us the recent one or the current one that you have?
Minimum standards, yeah. Yeah, I can find it.
Maybe that would help us, Chris, just to make sure we got it. All right. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sounds like a plan.
Todd, do you have anything you want to say?
No, other than you're taking on a lot of work. And it's a lot of organizational work. My ideal hope would have been that the county administrator would be here, because Lake Cares was a major function in 2020. This is going to be a major function in 2021. But in the meantime, the board needs to understand that in order to proceed, it's going to have staff working diligently to keep things moving piece by piece, or it is going to get forgotten about.
Better do it that way than wait till we have to do an emergency.
Right,
Yeah. Well, I think we have two of the ideal people in the room as far as directors to help with this. You know, with you and then Joanne. And then, you know, depending on, you know, the workflow or whatever.
I think we need a full-time administrator, though, we kind of
Mhm.
decided that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got to interview, or I think we're gonna set up, I know Janet's working on getting a couple of the county administrators that we can talk to, because I know some of them, like Ashley Buella's, she's dual function. She's budget and finance and administrator. And then I think we're gonna talk to Jaga County's current administrator, and then we're gonna talk to, I think, Stark County's. Janet's working on getting those set up to see, but, okay, that's a whole other topic though. Okay, all right, well, is Janet here yet?
You can get
So they're
it.
9:45.
Yeah.
You want me to get it?
We're done now.
We done?
Yeah, with the airport, unless anyone else has anything.
Mr. Bonner, do you have anything else about the airport?
I don't know why I thought the meeting was 9:30, so I'm late. I think I got the Cliff Notes version of what.
Yeah, all it was, this is more detail than we talked about getting to that point.
So is a plan to hire a full-time administrator for the airport, or be somebody that has a split?
You have a county, you have an airport manager, and this is county administrator for us.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you would hire, you'd put a
Manager,
manager in place out
yes.
there.
yeah, we would have to.
Yeah.
We have to have someone out there to oversee the daily operations. 'Cause one of
And
us
he
are-
would in
airport
essence take over
experience.
the FBOs.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
Is Janet not on our agenda? I mean, did you say Janet's coming in?
Yeah, she's coming in to talk about the sheriff's letter,
Oh.
because it has to do with the bargaining.
Okay.
And then I asked Chris to say, because I know this was an issue when we passed the Clemens Nelson thing.
Julie, do you want me to go get her?
No, she's
Oh, okay.
We got in place now.
Hello.
That's exactly why they're here, because I don't know if we want to do that this time, because Mr. Wolfman has already started. And we would be double teaming.
I emailed
Now,
her.
did he start the
I
sheriff
emailed
already? Oh, did he really? Oh,
I'd
it's
be
my
here tomorrow.
understanding they use-
No, that's just on a grievance thing they filed.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. No. No, we've already paid him money for the sheriff. Janet, oh, Joanne, can we have Janet, if you have that, please? Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood, because I know Janet, when the Clemens Nelson agreement first came up with the sheriff, your concern was, you know, that we were already under contract with Mr. Wolfens, and that he had already done some work, and you had paid, how much in the invoices had we already paid from Mr. Wolfens for the sheriffs? And that was to do what? To like the background research?
Just start the pre-negotiations, having conversations with them.
Well, has he had conversations with them? Do you know?
The last I heard was February 2nd, where the attorney Brian Holt was, I'm sorry, it was Pete Peckercraft.
Oh,
He told Jim Wilkins that he was scheduling a conference with the sheriff. So that's the last that I heard that Jim knew from the sheriff.
Okay, so Jim hasn't actually started anything with them.
They wanted to start negotiations in February, and that's what Jim was trying to coordinate to get on the books. And then the last I heard was February 2nd, was the email that Jim
Has
sent.
Jim met with the sheriff or anything, do you know, Janet?
I don't know if he's met with the new sheriff. I know he met with,
With Doak,
Sheriff
yeah.
Doak last year.
Well, the reason I'm asking is I know the sheriff is really adamant. He really likes this Esposito guy. He said it went very well, very smooth. And I mean, I don't know a lot about union negotiations, so like I said, I just had some questions about what do we have in place and how much more it's gonna cost us and how it's gonna work.
yeah, because that's my concern. Are we gonna pay a new attorney at this point in time to reinvent the wheel when we already paid Attorney Wilkins, and it's our understanding Attorney Wilkins was gonna handle these negotiations, or we maybe let Attorney Wilkins finish out this and then see what we can do the next time the sheriff's up for negotiation if they wanna switch counsel, because I just don't want it costing the county extra money. So I don't know if you
Yeah,
can.
and the last I heard was the email from Chris, because I know I expressed concern with Chris, that the Clemens-Nelson agreement had labor negotiations. It's listed in their agreement. And I was concerned that we've already established a relationship with Jim. We already have an agreement with him. And I knew he's already started conversations with the sheriff.
Who's Jim? Where's he from?
His office is in Akron.
He represents all our
All
units.
unions?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that was my concern, that Clemens-Nelson was coming in
Mm, very
and then
good.
start handling negotiations, and we were kind of like left out of the loop.
Yeah.
But
And that's what I've heard about Esposito. I've had a chance to talk to the sheriff as well. And from what the cost of what Jim is like $200 an hour,
250, I think.
50, and Esposito's $100 an hour. For an issue they just had, Esposito was able to, without a phone call, change it, which they didn't have confidence in the other person to do that. So I know we have investment of $16,000 or $17,000 there. But the long run, if they have somebody that they believe they can work, and Esposito works a lot with about 50 or 60% of the sheriff's offices in the state. It's by knowing that, and I don't know Mr. Wilkins, what he has to do either, but when you have the confidence of somebody that's got to be in the middle of that, I would go, as
But
much I hate.
has the sheriff met Mr. Wilkins? Because I thought I just heard.
I have no
him
idea.
say
He worked with Dave
that
Goats.
he hasn't even met him to decide if
that
he's
I
not.
cannot answer. I don't know if you will.
Okay.
I don't either. I just heard Sheriff Doak
Because I
is the
know-
one. And we're talking even for that, we're talking 1.5, 2 times, 1.5 times the cost of dealing with Mr. Wilkins versus Mr. Esposito. And Mr. Esposito's already got their ear and their confidence. And whether Sheriff Doak had that, and he may have, but you've got, saying a silly saying, new sheriff in town. But, and I would go with, I would want to work with who I was comfortable with. But
Well, and the thing with the fact of thing of it is Wilkins works for the county. So that being said, it was his understanding though, that he was to handle these, because these guys are delayed because there was a new sheriff coming in. I mean, it's because they should have already been started before now. They should have been done by the end of December, but
Right.
see, Joe put them on, had them
Right.
delayed for the new sheriff to come in, and so I don't know. I mean,
Chris, would there be any legalities if for the sheriff's division, they had their separate Mr. Esposito and Mr. Wilk is doing the rest of our negotiations? They're very, very different, I would think, between the sheriff's department and the rest of the counties. Would there be any legalities that Mr. Wilk could say, no, that's mine?
No, the board does sign off on all the labor agreements, including the sheriff's.
Absolutely.
So technically, you're a signatory to that. Ideally, having one negotiated for everybody is probably a good starting point.
and I guess someone brought up to me, it's better for us to have Wilkins, because Wilkins works for the board and the county, whereas if you're bringing in someone that works necessarily just for the sheriff, are they gonna be looking out necessarily for the county's benefit? And being familiar with the other negotiations and what else is going on within the county, that's one thing that was mentioned to me. And plus the fact that he already had started, that it seems odd to switch. in the middle of it. But I don't know. That's why I wanted you guys to come in to tell me, because we've never had this happen. I mean, I remember when we interviewed him, he's very qualified. This is basically all he does. And so, I mean, you know, Esposito can say he specializes in, you know, sheriff forces or whatever, but this guy, he specializes in all the contracts. So I don't know. So I'm just trying to think. And what I don't want is it to cost the county more money, because we've already paid Wilkins to do the background, and I haven't heard anyone complain about him in our negotiations.
Is it just that I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is Mr. Wilkins for all the county
Yes.
there, and the $17,000 we paid Mr. Wilkins is for the county? And we're just talking about this time
I don't
splitting
know
up.
what 17,000 you're talking
I
about.
don't know, Janet said we've already paid him 16 or 17,000.
No.
Oh, no, 1750.
1,750.
Okay, misunderstood. Yeah.
Well, here's another thing that was brought up to me is when we did the contract with him, we spread that out amongst the different bargaining units. And if we remove the sheriff's department, which happens to be the biggest one, how is that gonna fall back on the other units? Is that not correct, Janet or Joanne, as far as the cost for Jim Wilkins? Is that, or maybe it was Todd that brought that up, that it's,
Yeah, right.
someone did.
Wouldn't that fall back on us, those, we couldn't change what we've done over years ago.
Yeah, I don't believe you guaranteed him a minimum. Did you,
Okay.
Janet?
It's so much per hour.
Okay.
We put a cap to start
Hourly.
with.
There we go.
Yeah, it's for him to ramp up with as he
Okay.
does his work. But that by no means means that he's gonna get paid that total amount. Yeah.
And I will say that although Jim charges $250 an hour.
Correct.
But if there are portions of labor negotiations or any type of general legal questions that his other partners that charge a cheaper rate, he will give that work to them. Because I've seen on the invoice or so-and-so, hopefully.
So you're not getting the lead guy, you're getting his helpers.
Yeah. Well,
Assistants.
And he even said that.
Well, no, like with the research, we're not gonna pay him $250 if he can have a
Yeah.
clerk do it.
For less than the 250.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're generally less than-
Their administrative fees you're talking about.
So far, Jim has been the attorney during the labor negotiation.
Is this a common practice though, for us to use a different attorney? I mean, I understand if there's issues or something, they may want someone more specialized, but there's
Years
not.
and years ago, everybody had their own, and by years and years ago, we're talking over 12 years ago.
Okay,
When Tommy Joe came, she pushed for the retainer kind of centralized, and at that time, Vic signed off on that. And since that point, the commissioners have always offered the use of the commissioner's attorney for all negotiations, and every entity is taking up on that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the
for last-
majority of the contracts are the commissioner's departments.
Right, right.
Except
So-
the sheriff, I think.
The
Yeah,
last 10 years, all the
Uh-huh.
contracts have been handled by the same entity. Again, that's not a legal requirement. Sometimes it's nice so that you don't have one union getting this, another union getting that, and then you have,
No
crossover
coordination.
issues and whatnot. Plus, as Chris pointed out, you guys are signatories to the contract. You should be meeting with Mr. Esposito as well. If he takes over to lay out your parameters, you've kind of already done that with Mr. Wilkins between the other negotiations. But you guys have parameters that you can place on the negotiations as well that should be taken into consideration. And that would be done if you would take over.
And I will say, and I believe the engineer's office is not using Jim Wilkins. I think they're using. It used to be, it used to be Lee Harrington, and I don't know if Lee.
I don't believe
Now, do they
Mr.
do it
Harrington.
out of their budget? I mean, how does that work?
Mickey pays that
Well,
directly.
they-
I never
they're separate.
seen it.
So we've got other elected officials using somebody else.
And I don't know why Mickey
It is especially,
has chosen.
But he doesn't come out of our general fund, that's the difference,
Yeah.
yeah. Mickey has his own.
his own work.
Yeah, so that's the difference here, is
Okay.
because they have the most, union contracts of any of our offices. And like I said, and they come directly from our general budget, so that's why I think they've always been under with us because,
Should we ask the sheriff if we could have Mr. Esposito come talk to us?
I think we definitely need to talk to him.
Bring him in and what are his plans and what do you think his cost
And the
is?
thing is, if he specializes in sheriff, would we just use him for the sheriff and then Jim Wilkins for everybody else, or, I mean, I don't know.
I think you guys should talk to Esposito. I think the sheriff should talk to Wilkins as well, though, so he has a
yeah, because I don't think he should rule out
rounded opinion of who he
Wilkins.
does. I mean, I don't like
Yeah.
for Wilkins to seem like he's being pushed aside because he couldn't do it. I mean, he's done a very good job for us over the years.
And I mean, that's his specialty. He comes very highly recommended to us. And we haven't had any problems with any union negotiations with him, so that's why I'm a little
So
adamant.
maybe that should be the first step, the sheriff talks to Wilkins, and then
We get to talk to
if there's
Esposito.
a problem there, then.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so are we gonna, have, who's gonna ask the sheriff then to talk to Wilkins?
I will.
Or Janet, you wanna do that since you have the,
Yeah,
Janet probably should
Jen-
do it, because she has the contact
Yep,
and
gotcha.
information. We'll have Janet contact the sheriff, tell him. And then do we wanna have Mr. Esposito come in and talk to us, or?
I think you go from there, and if the sheriff still
Let's see how.
still
it goes.
prefers, then
Yeah.
you bring him in.
Yeah, because I don't wanna kick Jim Wilkins to the curb yet.
We're not kicking him to the curb. We're just taking a corner of it off.
Yeah, well. Like I said, I just wanna make sure that we have someone that's really working for the commissioners when it comes to negotiations.
In our best interest and
Exactly,
financially as well. I agree.
exactly, not being led by someone, so. Okay,
Thanks, Jim.
all right, thank you. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Have a great day.
Take care.
All right. County facilities, how do you want to come up? We got our little list. Our homework assignment was to rate these. Okay,
Yeah, take our top fives and little ones.
Yeah, definitely. Other than the dog wars, doesn't, you know, about the Paxton area that can cross.
The dog warden, I spoke to him. They don't need the dog run. They've got a private donor to do the cul-de-sac there, and the only thing they've got is a roof.
Yeah.
Kind of
How
steep
bad is,
roof.
how bad is the roof?
Roof. I think it's a big bark. Roof.
When I don't know, I've heard talk of the private donor coming in and do that for them.
I just spoke to him the other day.
You may want to have Mickey review. just
They
to-
have.
they-
Mickey and the water department both have
Great.
given their blessings to do what they want to do.
Yeah. And I know he worked with Water Resources too on some of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Mickey with the stormwater has to say over
Been pretty good
Yep.
about it.
blocking that flow
That's
or
up,
whatever.
Yeah.
Talked to them last week, this week.
Okay,
And we'll take over the roof from there. We'll have our roofing guy go out and give us an estimate of what needs to be done.
what kind of roof's on there?
It's not metal.
It's just a small peak, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not, yeah.
I was gonna say, it's not very.
No,
No, it's not big. Yeah, that's weird.
So, and that would fall under our normal
Yeah.
project
Maintenance.
money. and
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't, from what I understand, we haven't done maintenance for about 3 years. Anybody? Much big maintenance?
Costs out there?
No,
Oh.
much big maintenance throughout the
Big
county.
projects, right?
Big, we haven't done
Oh,
I'm
roof.
talking big ones.
Yeah,
Like I just-
you're doing normal maintenance.
HVAC and stuff. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I haven't done anything.
That's the first time.
No, that, but I mean, big stuff.
Yeah, big
To
time.
us too. That's right. He didn't say anything to us, so that's why.
I was gonna say, normally you would bring something to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, he didn't, and my guys didn't,
That wasn't on our.
that wasn't
Yeah.
on our list for my guys, because we go through every facility all the time, so they didn't have that on there, so.
So we have somebody that does our roofs.
No,
Well, no, we,
that's no good.
Contract.
It's early.
A lot of times.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, we have a company that we use.
That usually used, yeah.
We usually use, especially on the small jobs, but then he'll bid on the big jobs
Yeah.
too, depending.
So if we're doing a little job at the dog wardens, relatively,
Oh,
there.
do them all.
Why wouldn't it be a good idea that, because that building where we have the records, whatever is gonna happen, I think we're gonna keep, sounds like we're gonna keep that for a while. And both of those roofs are relatively small roofs.
Not at the.
Not
at
Rec
the
Rec center, not,
No.
that's.
You-
So
the record center's gonna,
flat roof.
the record center's gonna take us getting an engineer or an architect.
Really?
To actually write the specs for, because it's gonna have to be bid.
Yeah, it's the old nursing home.
Yeah, I've been in there, I didn't
So,
realize.
yeah, so no.
It's got all the
And that's why we can
beams
get in,
and
we
all
can do the dog warden and get in and get out really quickly on that.
Okay, all right.
Where like the Riddle Block, the
Yes, yes,
courthouses,
yes.
the admin.
Those I knew were big, but
You know,
I didn't
those kind of
realize.
things we have,
Okay.
yeah, those will have to be bigger projects that we
Okay,
can.
got it.
You can lump together if we then think we're gonna have the money to fund that, that's all.
Okay,
Otherwise, we have project money in the maintenance budget to take care of some of the small items like the Justice Center, the tile floor that keeps, popping up
Mhm.
everywhere in the admin kind of side of
Right.
everything. Well, we've got a quote now to go ahead and get that, taken care of. They're gonna get rid of the tile and they're gonna,
Great.
so we're gonna take care of that out of our normal maintenance wear and tear, so. Those kind of things we can just do with what we have.
Like the window leak, is that gonna be a big thing?
the justice, they can't figure out the jigsaw puzzle.
Which
No,
one
we're
are you
talking
talking
about
about?
the
Under the
prosecutor.
Prosecutor's
Yeah,
office?
The window leak, is that an easy thing or not? No, Shannon's shaking. her
Act
head.
of God.
It's been a nightmare. Oh my gosh, I don't even, I think
I
that
know.
window.
What's so bad?
The problem is that when the floors were added, nobody knows what happened and why this one little area leaks. But we cannot get to that area, roofers can't get to that area to actually work on it without taking the power down for 3 days.
3 days?
You gotta shut the power
How
down.
They
long
don't,
did
they
say?
didn't want to say. He said
Yeah,
probably 3 days.
Shut all the
Couple
power down,
days,
because the
because
power
it's
lines
so
are right
close.
over the top of it.
right.
It's right next to it, and you can't use the roof behind it, because when they did the project, they ruined his roof. So he had to put on a new, so he says, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure about that. So he says, you are not allowed to get on our roof anymore. Because we used to take a ladder on, I don't know who owns it, the gentleman that owns it, put a ladder on there to get to the prosecutor's side.
I had a chance to speak with the prosecutor. I went and toured his business, or
Building.
our building that he informed me was ours. But he took me around, we talked about that leak.
Mm.
And it's from everything everybody's told me, is there's cranes from the other side that have to be anchored and go up over the
Yep.
top.
Yep.
And then they gotta shut the power off for however long.
Mhm.
Take a side of the building, take that marble off, so they can get to it,
Well,
to see if they can figure it out.
It's never
Well,
fixed.
that's what I was gonna say, what's the repercussions of not doing anything with it?
Well, and part of the issue is that the rain has to be blowing in the wind a certain way for you to leak.
Correct.
Yeah.
So like this last year, we had nothing, no problems. But then when we have some of those monsoon things that come through, and if it hits just right, that's
Then it-
when the
How much does it take to fix the inside when we have one of those rare monsoons?
Because I said, can't we
Yeah,
just
right.
caulk everything around there? and
We did.
so that
Oh,
it
we
didn't-
did.
But we did that.
No, I did not.
It just comes through.
We tried
the-
everything.
But what about mold and stuff, if that water's getting down?
That's what they need to tear, I mean, they don't even know where it's leaking. We call it window leak, but they don't
That-
know where.
It was just $75,000
That's,
just to
that's
figure out
part of
where the
what needs
leak's
to
coming
happen is
from.
tear it off and see what is going on inside. It could be coming from way over and the whole
And then
wall
they-
is lit, or
they
it could
didn't
just be
fix
right
it.
Did you
there.
hear what Shannon
We
just
didn't,
said?
we
No, they
didn't
haven't
do
done
it
it.
because they go, well, we can't guarantee. you."
$75,000 to look.
This is just,
Who did that?
No, they didn't do it.
I know,
That's
I
what they
said,
want.
who charges 75,000 to look at?
They have to
only
get cranes
person that
and-
we could get.
'Cause they
Yeah,
have to
nobody
share
wants to touch
Companies
it.
Came out to look.
No one else.
No one
Nobody
would touch
wanted to take the risk
Oh.
because it's in such a,
Who did this
curious
building?
spot.
Is there a liability there, whoever did that work?
Well, who we've been, dogging about it was Haas and Staub Architects because they're the ones that designed and everything and they had their people, their construction managers kind of guide, monitoring all that. They're the ones that we said, okay, this is your problem, so come and tell us what we have to do. They got multiple people to come out and no one wanted to give a quote, but then we got the one that was out of sight and I'm like, and this is just to say, oh,
This is the problem.
here's what we think is
Yeah.
wrong now, or,
But we
geez, we still can't figure out. what's
Then you
wrong.
gotta pay
That
to
would
try
be
it and then
worse.
see if it works.
If it works, and then it won't work. That's my,
It's
Joanne,
terrible.
Joanne, am I wrong in saying that the main contractor is no longer a contractor anymore?
Out of business? Yeah, I believe so.
It's been a while.
I think they
So
went out
you
after.
couldn't even go after them to ask
Um,
them?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
let's
I
get
did
back
that.
on track then.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right, let's start with, Todd, you wanna give us an idea as to the phases and what we should be looking at and how much money we should be thinking about as we're going through the project list?
So, again, I kind of brought up the last meeting, you've got the 1 year, what are you gonna do now? You've got a 3 year of what other projects are piling up right behind that. And then you've got a kind of your 10 year of, okay, are we keeping all these facilities? If so, what needs done with them? If you keep the record center, it needs the change of use started to be done, all that type of stuff. That's kind of the 10 year plan. If we could get at least the 1 year out of the way, that would be nice. You haven't done projects in a while. I don't think it's outrageous if you spent 5 to 6 million this year, getting some of these caught up. Again, the idea being then that would put you on track to start doing a couple million then each year after that. One of the hazards of budgeting, so to speak, is capital projects tend to get kicked to the side while you fill your operating, because that's the glamour. But you've got to be very careful that you make sure you make capital a priority. And 1.5 to 2 million is what a county of our size should be doing on a regular basis, if we want to keep up on things.
So I had a chance to talk with Todd, so that, Pretty Glen Dam, is that proper name? That money is not included in that
Correct,
money's
that's
set aside.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we know.
okay, I
It's
didn't
been
know.
set
I didn't
aside.
know that, so my question, Todd, was how come we haven't? So that'd probably be of a big project out of the way, because that's not, we have that money set aside for it.
Absolutely, and because of COVID, they kind of let us
Everything's
alone
stopped.
for a while, but believe me, they're gonna come back to us if we don't start doing
Right.
something with it.
And then you have, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, Pretty Glen, or Hills Pond or Pretty
Yeah.
Glen Dam. Yeah, Todd, we also can apply for grants, and there's
Oh,
the
yeah.
Nature Works that, Todd, when did you think that? we
They
would
usually
have
do
to
around
apply?
March. In fact, I believe I just saw a Nature Works application come through within this
Now,
last
who would
month.
apply for that? Is that
Um,
you, Joanne?
Well, that's what the board has to sort out, but yeah, someone in the county needs to write the application. The engineer had indicated that they also help do that sort of thing. Now, the restoration occurs after the dam's torn down, so you could actually apply for the restoration,
Now,
like apply for next March if you're gonna tear down, like, let's say this fall. But those are things that the engineer could lay out for you, what is a reasonable time frame from the time you remove the dam to the time you begin restoration, those type of things. So it may behoove us to bring the engineer back in and give you guys a timeline update if you really are wanting to proceed. Like Joanne said, we got the estimate on the easements and then we never acted on them. That's the next step, is to get those signed and out of the way.
Yeah.
At one time, Todd, I think we had over $1 million that was gonna be given to us to help us tear it down.
Yeah, there were more grants early on. 2 of them I know have dried up. The state no longer offers those grants at all. The big unknown is whether you compare it with a sewer project. There's what they call credits. So many dollars worth of sewer projects earn so many credits worth of environmental restoration. Right now, nobody, it used to be, you could just go in and you could grab anybody's. If there was a project in Mahoning County, we could grab their credits here if nobody was claiming them. Now, everybody's gotten pretty savvy at timing their sewer projects
Yeah,
with their environmental projects, so they claim their own credits.
right.
So the question would be to Water Resource, then what major projects do we have coming up that qualify? And is it worth trying to time that with those so that we get that money? Those are all questions, again, that need sat down and worked out with timelines. I think the starting place is with the engineer. And then once we get the Water Resource in, figure out what projects they do have pending.
We just spent so much time on this one day.
I know, I'm done with it.
We've had people
Well,
come
that's,
in
and I'll say, to be honest, that the board has stopped it at least 3 separate times. We've started
Yeah.
and then the board has put a hold on it, and then we've started and the board has put a
And the
hold on
money's
it.
there.
that's,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys are okay, again, part of it's just dusting off some of the
Yeah.
papers and phone calls
Well-
and getting it reinitiated, but
I think we should go through our list. Pretty Glen Dam, I think we're all in agreement. The money's there. Let's do it. Let's get this done. Who is gonna check about the grants? Todd, is that something you wanna talk to the engineer's office possibly about, or
You're talking
Joanne?
about my engineer.
your
right?
engineer, yeah.
Oh, your engineer. I'm sorry.
The outside engineer that we use
Yeah.
that will write the bid specs and everything.
So we'll have that
out.
go Joanne, because I think you had already looked into that
Right,
and
well,
stuff
we had been
before.
engaged to do all that and then.
It got stopped.
And that's part of what they do is
Yeah.
they package, you know.
He knows,
Yeah.
he works, he does engineering work for our water resources department all the time and
So
as well
he's
as
perfect.
county engineer, so he knows our county pretty well.
So Joanne, will you
Yeah,
take the
I'll
lead
get
back
with
on
you.
that?
Sure.
Because, like I said, I think we just need to get it going.
Yeah, no.
I mean, the money's there.
Our outside engineer, not anybody in.
And Todd, I don't remember us having 1.8 in there. I thought we had like 1.5,
It's
1.6.
just a little over 1.8.
Okay,
in
is
that
it?
budget,
Okay.
I think we had access to 1.6 at one time. years ago
Yes.
that To be given to us.
Yeah,
Well,
Okay.
the proposals I think that came in, one was 1.6 to remove or 1.6 to fix, and then it was 1 point something else to take out, 1.3.
And then we
take
could
out-
get grants.
Right.
To help
towards
us
that.
remove
That's- I know
it,
that's
but
where you
not.
put the 1.6,
Yeah.
because that was one of the issues
Right.
there, sure.
Now with the roofs that we need an architect and all that stuff, would that be too big of something to take on this year, do you think, Joanne? I mean,
The,
That
for
roofs are
like the
important.
microfilm center and like Riddle, you mean?
yeah,
We're good on our other buildings on roof. I didn't see anything on maintenance's list on those. So
Mhm.
yes, what I would do would be to get an architect or an engineering firm to come in and get the specs ready and bid them both out. If you're telling me I've got $5 to $6 million to spend.
No.
I heard that too. Actually, I wrote that down.
No,
so-
I was just gonna say, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because we just
Get back in
said,
the minute.
I got airport's a priority, and that's gonna take at least 2, probably 3 million. So
For the airport.
yes,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
airport,
well, what do you
Todd,
think the parking lot's gonna be? Is that
That
gonna
was
be?
my
because
note.
that's the other
The
one.
courthouse parking.
Yes.
lot, That one has to be totally, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I can get somebody to look at it and give me like an approximation.
I'm guessing you might be even a little over $1 million when it's all said and done. Maybe we'll be lucky it's not.
You said there's renditions from the city of Ravenna, but they wanted walkways and stuff. And I get renditions. To offer them, hey, we're doing this. Is there something you want to put money in to begin to do that?
No, that's where
They're
they.
coming
want-
to us
They
for-
wanted the county's money to do it.
And-
It
So the paved, the old brick road is gone.
doesn't hurt to ask, but they were hoping we would do the plan.
Hey, Joanne, when you were talking about roofs, the sheriff's department has a flat roof, a portion of it that needs.
The old
as well.
Justice Center, I keep bringing up.
I just didn't, I mean, that's a pretty big portion too. but-
Well, first of all, let's see, if we've got the airport, Todd, you're projecting that's what,
I would plan on 3 million,
3 million,
This
because
year.
then, does that include the purchase of the FBO then?
yes.
So 3 million, so that takes us down to 2 to 3 million.
Mhm.
And then we gotta do the courthouse parking lot, it sounds like.
That's all, well, there's 3 of them, right?
No, well, no, it's just
I
one
thought there
big
were-
lot.
It's one huge
It's
lot.
They're like
continuous.
islands attached. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Yeah,
calling it all
okay.
one.
I thought you had said 3,
Yeah,
but
it
yes,
goes
that's,
from
Spruce all the way
Right,
to
right.
Riddle.
got it, okay.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
one contiguous, but yeah. So that would be another million. So we really probably only have,
2 million.
yeah,
And then, and so we got 3 big projects. Then we do the little ones, like the Wi-Fi for this building, fix the downstairs, the directory that you were talking about.
Oh, that can't be that much.
No, yeah, and that's what I mean, not pick 3 little
Millions.
things.
Couple million. I'll make it nice and fancy.
well, I was thinking about how much,
Most of that's
Joanne, the fuel
consulting.
tank removal for motor pool. How much do you think that?
I
would
had a
be?
cost on that one too before we had to stop it, so I'll go back and pull that. I got my documentation.
well, was
Yeah.
that like
Under
real-
20,000?
huge?
Pardon me?
Was that huge?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't, that's what I'm saying,
Now-
we're gonna,
The real
I will-
danger is
I will
if you
put a
have issues.
caveat on that though, if the
They
ground
find
underneath,
something.
right,
That's the cost.
is bad, then you're talking, money that we don't know exactly what that would be, if they have to take it out. Yeah.
And then, because the fuel tanks themselves aren't that old, they're only, what, about 15 years old, I think Pat said? The fuel tanks that we're gonna be removing. But then, after that, that's when they do the phase one, the environmental study on it to see, that's where we could run into.
Well, we're still doing the cleanup of the county engineer's old facility on Cleveland Road. Every time we think we've got everything taken care of, when they do surface, ground spikes, and we send them in, we've got issues again.
Well, we
And
have
the state
the,
fire marshal is like, get that fixed, so.
now Joanne, I can't find my list, but I know the Board of Elections is coming in, I think this Thursday.
So they're not gonna need more than 20-30,000.
I was just gonna
Did
say,
you talk to him?
we went
I
through
mean,
this.
them too.
And, I guess there was a meeting in December, and Todd, you said there was $150,000 set aside.
What I told them was the original was around 150 that the board planned to do, but that they did some of it. That's the part they keep leaving out. But they did work with
But they
Joanne
Amber Alert,
Amber Alert in
Amber Alert.
Ohio,
to get some of
not
that
us.
done.
Well, I've got mine.
Yeah.
Columbus.
Mine's up too. I thought it was good.
Thought I left
Well,
mine someplace
anyway,
else.
they can cover a lot of that expense themselves, and they said probably between 20 and 30,000, so I think that's doable.
That's a little, I would consider a little, huh?
We went through our list.
Yeah.
And we did everything on the list that we could do for them.
Mhm.
And we talked about it last
Yeah.
Right,
week,
right.
last time,
Mhm.
things that were impossible to do because of the building.
Mhm.
But now they had a new request, they want a generator,
A backup generator?
For their
for
facility.
their area, because they're not tied into the generator in the
Oh,
building.
you're
They're-
kidding.
Yeah, that's,
No, I.
That's a
thought
simple
maybe
thing.
Maybe they weren't.
they have a couple thousand, 3,000 square feet.
We're getting
Here.
quotes.
We're getting a quote for they can't be on ours because there's just not enough
Mhm.
room. So I'm supposed to be getting a quote, but I'm told that it's quite high because in order, they have to jackhammer around where the panel is that it's gonna tie into.
Mhm.
They have to shut them down for about 3 days. I mean, I just found this out yesterday. And it's gonna be quite the to-do because you have to pipe it in. So it's not simple. It's not a simple generator, so.
Okay.
But I know our one electrician's looking into it, so he said he's gonna give quotes and it could possibly have to be bidded out.
Okay.
It might
Now,
not be.
part of it is, from what I understood, was that they were concerned about election nights and if the power went out.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So, Mr. did bring out the fact that on election nights, why don't we bring a generator in? EMA has them, has one mounted. Now, I just
Instead of
found,
having one all year, you mean just have them bring it in that night?
bring it in that night and hook them up, and it makes sense to me, and I don't know if that's one of the issues that they're gonna bring up now.
They did not.
They
say
tell
that.
you what they wanted,
I've
yeah,
got a meeting with her this week,
yeah, so if that's, I
Okay.
don't know if
That's
that's
an idea,
palatable, but
especially if it's gonna cost 40, 50,000 bucks.
Yeah, and he just.
Put a
doesn't know.
generator in there.
Well,
That's
then
not-
that wasn't in our conversation, because they said 20.
No, I have no
yeah,
idea.
so what they want,
And there, she's talking
until we know,
jackhammer. went
until
up.
we know what those are, we can't tell you if we can do them or not,
You
but, should be.
Do we know the cost of the sheriff training center? And the reason I'm bringing this up is we've been hearing for years that they need more training out there. Well, this new sheriff seems to think they really need more training out there, and he's pretty adamant about it.
Well, the
They-
new training center is brand new.
Yeah,
That's
We
a
don't-
Coit Road.
It's just on, it's
I
just
think it's
on
just on-
here as a
It's just
list of-
listed as a building.
Right, he didn't ask anything. No, I was surprised to see that too. I didn't even realize we just talked about facilities we own.
Yeah, she just had it added. These are
Oh,
facilities
okay.
to think
Okay.
about.
Yeah.
The
The
wood
sheriff does want
Oh,
more
everybody,
training,
they
Yeah.
want
Should
training.
sell.
and there's costs there, like for the individual.
Right,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he brought that up to me,
Yeah.
training.
But yeah, not the facility.
No,
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, that's-
we've been taking care of that.
Yeah,
I just
Yeah.
wanted
I'm
to
not
make
gonna
sure
train.
all of our facilities were listed,
okay,
just like.
okay, so that really shouldn't.
That's
it doesn't
not
have
the,
it-
It's
doesn't
not
have
on
issues
the-
listed on it, so.
Okay, when you talk
Anybody
about
with a
your-
corner,
What I like to do is lay out 30 years, in which case the training center's roof is somewhere in that 30 years. You know what I mean? Now, it may be in
Yeah, 'cause it's
2045 that
brand
it
new out
occurs,
there.
but then that becomes your 10-year, which becomes your 5-year, which becomes your, work it down. So it's nice to have all the facilities, but it's nice on the 1 year to be able to check them off and say nothing needs done.
So just to reiterate, so our number one project is the airport, so that's 3 million. Number two would be the courthouse parking lot.
Mhm.
And then 3, even though it's not included in our funds, is Pretty Glen Dam.
Yep.
We are advising
Yeah,
our
I got
staff to move forward with it. And then as far, I think we need to hold off on decisions of the other ones until I think, like you said, the Board of Elections is coming in. I know that the sheriff's coming in Thursday, or Ralph is, sheriff's not, for vehicle replacement. I mean, Todd, where are we at? I mean, we have a plan in place for replacement.
It's been on hold. Normally, we order our vehicles in November.
Okay,
It's been on hold pending the new sheriff and now on hold even further pending his plans. But yeah, you need to decide here, hopefully by the end of February, what you're gonna do with the whole fleet, not just the sheriff's. force.
not just the sheriff's.
We have-
I was just
we have
gonna
all
say,
the
it's not
vehicles
just the
kinda
sheriff's. We,
waiting.
again, have to think about all of them.
You know, I would ask that you guys get those motor pool tanks out and the environmental study done. That way we know whether there's more pending. Because God forbid we wait and do that when we're ready to sell and find out there is something. Now we're a year behind paying for that remediation.
Joanne, is that going on now? Weren't the tanks being checked or something? The tanks of the
I
motor?
everything was just taken out of service finally.
Okay,
We
all
had
right, it's
that,
taken out of
yeah,
service. Okay.
To satisfy the state fire marshal.
Mhm.
And I already had quotes for taking the
Thanks.
removal and then stuff out. I just need to get those out. And
Refreshed.
I don't, again,
Get that done,
Yeah,
get the
no.
environmental review
Yeah.
done, and then we know what we got
so
there.
do you want, is that your number 4 then?
Yeah, let's
Well,
do.
when Tony was saying small stuff, I mean, you know, I've got the airport, Breedland Dam, the courthouse parking lot, then I had Wi-Fi.
Those are small.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wi-Fi,
Pool, I think we need to check into the fuel tanks. I mean, I'm not saying do those, but check in to see the cost.
Okay.
Then the roof, the dog warden.
Yep.
And I really believe the BOE, unless this generator comes up, because like I said, that wasn't mentioned to me. Those are all small things, so I think that's doable.
What about our elevators here?
Oh, my.
I need to bring them up, but every other week, they're here. What are we gonna do with our
That's
elevators
a very
here?
costly thing.
huge.
I know, but
We had those upgraded. I'll have to go back and look at what year that we made them electronic from what they were. I'll go back and see. I don't know. We can bring someone in and say, what can be done to improve these, if
I
anything?
would hate to see what we're paying Otis elevators,
No.
because
We're
they
luck-
had 2 of
we're-
them shut down last week. Only
We're
one
looking
was
like
we're under
working.
contract.
Part of it is we're working off of a contract that was established,
Way before me.
years and years and years ago, and we don't pay, the maintenance on it is very reasonable for what they, how often they.
Or they have to
And
come.
I'm surprised that they're not banging at us
Bang it,
to
changed.
renew, to change, but they also know that there's other companies out there.
Yes.
Working on a vintage steam engine, some of it is like,
What's
I've never seen that.
Well, no, it just made me think that, because I think about what happened to us at the Riddle Block for months. We were out at an elevator, I had a pregnant woman traipsing up that hot corridors. And the other day, not 1, 2 elevators were down, and I'm thinking, my gosh, what is our story? I mean, I swear they're here every other week, it seems like. I'm like, is it something that needs replaced, or how?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember how
We're
expensive
busy
it was
here.
when we,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't think those were that old,
Riddle was 80,000.
Yeah.
but that was just for a part or
But we-
something.
And that
They
I'll have to
rebuilt
go
it.
back and look and see.
That was a
like I said,
piston
when
drive
we-
that only lifted the four.
When we
three-quarter
redid the
whatever.
ones here,
Yeah,
Yeah,
these-
because
because they've been redone once.
I know, that's what I was saying, but, and maybe that's in our 3-year plan, but like I said, I think that's something we might ought to put in there, because like I said, when I saw 2 of them were blocked off and only 1 was working, I'm thinking, I don't know, mercy. It's getting worse.
Vicky, did you say roof on Riddle?
Yeah, I asked about
Yeah,
that.
oh, yeah, I was asking those 3 things or 4
Yeah.
things.
The roof, yeah.
The roof is like 354.
The roof at Riddle, and I thought we were gonna
Yes,
combine the roof. at
that would be
Riddle
great.
and The microfilm center, if we're gonna
Yeah,
do those.
yeah.
So
But that's
I know.
gonna require an architect and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
that's gonna be a bigger project.
Right.
That we need up,
Riddle block involves an engineer as well.
What's it touch point?
yeah.
The concrete spaces between bricks.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you, We had it done here at this building, and you can tell where we had it done back in the past, but that building up there needs it done.
I want to talk about the annex building, because I drive by there, like Tony said, to rebuild that thing would cost us a fortune. And it's like, have we ever had anyone check for the flooding issues or the water in the basement? Because it seems like such a good building. I mean, I know you'd have to do renovations on the inside, but I know the biggest thing is the flooding in the
Foundation.
basement, Have
That
we
was the
even
one I
had,
think you said last week they'd have to dig out.
From the
trench
outside.
around
Yeah, we have to, like
properly
Ohio,
waterproof.
yeah, Ohio State waterproofing, because
Yeah.
Sunny had taken me there, and their opinion is it's got great bones.
Who said?
Sunny and
yeah.
Mark,
Are you listening to this?
I am. I
Yeah,
actually like it.
Because I look at it and I can't see me tearing that building down.
It's good bones, and the air conditioning's need upgraded.
Oh, I've got the list from them.
Okay.
Hold on a
We
minute.
get different opinions on that building. There's been a lot of people said we need to tear it down.
Yeah.
And others we said it's got good
Yeah.
bones. I mean,
It's got it,
New doors, new
Go ahead,
AC,
go ahead,
boiler,
go ahead.
I don't know.
Joanne, wait a second, Joanne, go ahead and do that again.
New doors, new AC built system, a new boiler, the basement leaks, and the stairs need painting.
Painting's easy,
We have
water
the
state
issue
water.
with the outside
Yep.
handicap elevator thing that
Yeah.
unfortunately we had to have.
Yep.
And it causes problems too.
Yeah.
If we were to rent it to someone or to have someone in there, we need to make sure that that's
Elevator's working.
up and
It's a
running all the
problem.
time.
you know,
Yeah.
Joanne, if we chose that Iron Mountain for
Yes.
spreading, do they also keep records for you?
Oh, yeah, they store them.
Now, if we chose them, would we still need a record center here?
Well, I
Depends how much
would,
you
yeah,
want
I
to
would
pay.
say that the majority of Glenn's time and Ramona's time in the afternoons, especially, are pulling files to deliver to the prosecutor and to the
So we
courts.
still need.
Yeah.
Because the judge will still, even if it's scanned in and recorded, they still want the hard copy. So there's going to have to be a minimum of so many years, I believe, that we're still gonna have to keep.
Now, would that annex building be big enough, do you think?
Well, we had, the microphone center was in the basement before.
Yeah.
And then we outgrew that quickly, and there were records spread around the county, and then that's when we took them out to the nursing home and put them in there when the new one was built. Personally, I don't think that it would maybe be big enough to hold everything that we need to
Okay.
have. But that's the conversation we're trying to have with some of these elected officials
Yeah.
about why
How
do you
much
think
do
you
you
need
need?
to have this many?
Yeah.
And
How many
see if we
years do
can't
you
get
need?
that pared down because of their, with their,
Storing and keeping.
the state, this says they have to keep,
Right.
if they're keeping over that, why can't?
What department is it that wants everything?
Well,
There's one department that wants.
the only one that I was able to check and get some information on thus far was, the clerk's office. And they've got some records that are pretty old out there, and Jill had called me and we've missed each other each time.
Okay, so she may be willing to give up.
I'm guessing, it's possible that she's ready now and figures out that if they just look at their schedule and can tell, maybe we can get some of that going.
Mhm.
But, juvenile court's another bad one that we tried last year, working with Judge Berger, and we weren't very successful. He didn't want to get rid of anything. So now with the new judge, we're going to re-ask the question about, can you please look at these and say they now can go, or what's the reason why they can't?
Or microfilm or.
Yeah, do they need, if we need to go out and have them, shot again and re-index, or if you don't have the film on them, let's send some of them out to get them, because we can't work that
We've
quickly.
got like 80-year-old speeding tickets.
Exactly, yeah. So,
Joanne, do you have on here, the maintenance building? Does that need anything, or is it just listed as a building that
Just
we
to be
have?
here, yeah.
yeah.
This is going down
They
through.
keep, that's their domain, they keep that pretty well.
Yeah, they
There you go.
What I was
Marble
gonna
floors.
suggest is, when you start talking like the annex, even the old emergency room, some of it you need to also be talking about, well, what use are you moving towards?
Yeah.
It doesn't do any good to fix the annex building if it's gonna keep sitting vacant. On the other hand, if you're gonna put the record center in it, that's a different fix than if you're gonna put offices in it.
Then you
Or
have
if you're
to-
going to put, what you're gonna use it for, in part depends on what you're gonna actually fix. The
But
size of the air conditioner, heater, all
Well,
that type
I'm
of stuff.
still torn on the Riddle building. I understand that, the judges and the probation and everyone likes it because it's conveniently located next to the courthouse. But I mean, man, that thing's a money pit.
where do you put them?
And here's, well, I'm getting to that part.
Okay.
Here's the other thing, Todd and I were talking about today, is you've often heard Judge Verdi and Judge Pittman both say they really have enough caseload to add another
Another
judge. So if we're gonna have to add another courtroom, does it behoove us to add on to the existing courthouse? And then put a floor in there for probation and then eventually get rid of Riddle Block? But then, I think we just have to keep in mind, how much money we're sinking in that thing, because it's a money pit.
Well, that becomes the question, if in your 10 years you have needs elsewhere, then does it make sense to put your money there rather than here? That's part of why we need the plan,
The plan to look at.
so that we aren't spending money and then realize, oh wait, we're gonna tear this building down. But some of that goes not only what the buildings need, but what use is gonna move to them.
But
You're
the
talking
Riddle,
about you would want to do what they did at the prosecutor by going up?
Well, we don't even know what
Probably
we could do with the
We would
courthouse,
almost
but,
have to go up, wouldn't
we own a lot of land, even up in downtown Ravenna. The other option, the city approached us, was that 4 years ago? About the possibility of combining facilities. The city of Ravenna can no longer issue debt because of their credit rating. But they're in need of certain things. And so there was question of whether we could start combining facilities rather than having government spread out all across the downtown, start concentrating government so that other businesses can actually come in and utilize downtown. Those are larger conversations, but if they never happen, they never start.
Well, we hadn't, remember we invited them in here and we never heard any.
That was,
They were
that's as
looking
far
at-
as we got, was it'd be a great idea, but then nothing ever concrete came
But
of it.
that's because they were trying to get monies to buy the old Tops building. They were looking to move the fire station, the police station. And I
We need to
think
stay away from it.
that out of there and then use the.
But that's the even bigger picture, that we could go to is, but again, we gotta get done what we need to get done this year, but then as the discussions progress, the further out you go, the more open the options become, and choosing which one sounds best and begin
Well,
working
I-
towards
Then we get
it
nothing.
is
I
what
think
we
we
do.
at least got a handle on the projects for this year, and that is, we're not gonna just sit on this money and dwindle it away
I
because.
wasn't sure, the Riddle and nursing home kept being brought up. Are we gonna proceed with those this year?
if we at one time want to sell that Riddle building,
We'll never.
they
do it.
took me up on top of the roof. It's a dangerous roof. If we don't fix that roof, that building's gonna be trash when we do try to sell it.
Right.
So I think that should be on the big projects, the $350,000 to $400,000 to get that roof fixed. The windows could wait a little bit, then the point tuck. And if I was a contractor, I would do roof, windows, point tuck in that order. But if we want to sell that eventually, if we don't have a good roof on and that roof's not good, and you can't walk in places because it bounces up on top of that roof.
I've never been on the roof.
They took me, I've been up, but it's not high enough to skydive off of. But you can't walk in certain places because it bounces.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a rubber roof up there now. But that's gotta be on there if we ever think about getting rid of that thing.
And then what about the elevators, Tom? Yeah,
The elevator they just fixed.
so that's.
The
That-
Riddle block.
Riddle block, where's the Riddle block?
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they just,
The only thing we have is
80,000, that was
the
last year.
the
Yeah, that
Riddle
was last year.
windows and the tuck money, but the windows alone would cost us a fortune because you can't just buy any old window.
no, but if you look at those windows,
It's in the
those-
historic district.
but those windows have been replaced before. Those aren't original windows, those are storm windows in that sucker. And that means when it was built, they didn't have storm windows.
All I know is whatever we do to that building, we always have
Yeah,
to
have to go
go
for-
for historical.
But that's one of the arguments.
approval.
Those things have been replaced.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
I went through, as we went through,
Hummel did that when he bought it? He
not,
could've.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, he may have done it, or when
Might
they
have
had
when
the
the fire
fire and
broke out.
stuff.
I don't know
they
how
had
much
to
the fire
renovate a
damaged.
bunch of
Yeah,
it.
but
Yeah,
they're,
they wouldn't have had a choice when they had the fire, that's true.
and those are storm windows. So in 1888, they did not have storm windows. I checked.
So we're,
I asked Bruce because he was alive then.
I was born in 1846.
You look pretty good for that age.
Just need paved, that would-
I don't think, it's just listed on there.
Oh,
Lot F
okay.
doesn't need anything.
I'm sorry, what?
Lot F,
Lot F, no, we take care of that out of our maintenance budget.
it's just another.
And that's what I'm just gonna say to you, that our normal
but
wear
yeah, as we
and
start
tear
talking
of the
about that
things
10
that
year,
we do,
Yeah.
we're gonna continue just to do as they come up.
Right.
Versus
Right.
bringing them back up here every time, out of our budget.
Mhm.
Um,
Is anything that we're talking about out of the budget you're talking about? The
Why?
riddle roof?
the what-
No.
Those are the big items.
the
Okay.
dog warden roof would be the board of
The
elections.
dog
might
warden, the board of elections
Okay.
kind of things, those kind of things.
So that
And
takes
then
it- what about the
talking
Wi-Fi for the
Wi-Fi
building?
For a minute?
That's kind of-
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Do you want me to talk to Lloyd about it, or what do you want to do about finding out how we can proceed and get it done?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a plan that I heard a couple weeks ago that was about
Well-
$60,000 to get Wi-Fi on all the floors rather than just one floor?
No.
Brian, that was under Brian.
No, it was
Yeah.
So
six
that was-
hundred and $38,000.
It was,
It was
Yeah.
asked.
And that's what I've heard, that last week when they were here, I heard a very low number.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
when
larger
IT
figure was
came
for
in?
every
Yes.
facility. That was for every
That's-
facility in the
Because we
county.
wanted it for every facility.
This
We should
building-
start in this building because this building operates everything else and we
It's
don't
the
have it.
largest public.
It also
building, too.
depends, like that large figure was a 7-year. That was a 7-year
Seven-year program.
contract. It included all the costs for 7 years. Obviously, if you do 1 year, it's gonna be much less.
Mhm.
I mean, we've had estimates on this building. Lloyd would need to refresh them and get it going if you guys wanna do it. That would be additional money. My guess is it's gonna be around 20,000 just for 1 year. And then you're gonna have annual costs.
Yeah.
You pay for.
So you want to
service,
get
so to
with
speak.
Lloyd then, Joanne?
I
and
can.
get a
Yeah,
couple-
I think that actually is one of the things that
And what
surprised
about,
me.
what about the courthouse? I know they have finagled to get Wi-Fi, but they truly don't have.
If you're gonna do it properly, Lloyd would like it to be done differently,
right,
but it's money.
they've taken, and each port, I think, has got their own setup to be able to handle that. in
It
their
works while
courtrooms
you're
and
in
so
that
forth.
area,
I
not
know,
building wide.
And it seems to be working for them. I agree, it's probably not the best solution because it's not necessarily safe.
But you know,
Cyber
that's
safe.
what they need for like the attorneys and stuff that need
It's
Wi-Fi.
That's why
becoming
they
where
move-
that's how
that's why
everybody does
they
their
move
business.
Yeah, and that's even this building. We have to do it normal business to accomplish normal
But to get,
business.
like you were mentioning, there's the private portal, like for employees, and there's the public portal, and the security on those two different
Have to be.
are significant if you want to assure that someone from the public can't come in and do mischief on our main server. I
But
mean,
then
that's so,
again,
that's what you're paying for
correct
is
me
the
if
security.
needed, but doesn't downtown Ravenna have Wi-Fi now? Because I thought they put it in downtown. Do you
They had a
remember that,
grant, and
Vicky?
actually, we talked to them about extending it to the courthouse, and there was the possibility there, but those talks died, so I don't know.
But
if
do you
that's
remember
an
that? Because
option. Oh,
they put it out there that
Because we also
downtown
talked
was
to
gonna
Kent
have
State about
Wi-Fi.
using
But
theirs
did
for
they
the
ever really
Kent
do it? I know
courthouse.
they talked about it, but I don't know if they did it.
Kent State goes right up to the corner. In fact, if you stand just right, you can get it at the Kent courthouse. There was talk about asking Kent State to use their system for the Kent courthouse, but that kind of fell through too. I mean, we have options. Again, the question is, what does the board really want? Is it every building? Is it this building to start? And then we need to get the costs of how it happens correctly so that you have those firewall protections. If you have a public, you don't even have to have the public access. Of course, employees will give people the password, and now your private one is just, it's ruined as well, so it.
Well, the way we were doing it now, when I heard that if I want to do a Zoom and I work on this floor or one of the other floors, I have to drive home to get on Zoom. As soon as I leave this building and drive home, go on Zoom, that's a workers' comp.
Right.
And we have total liability to that person. And so we're extending we talk about liability, and we're extending our liability because we don't have Wi-Fi and I can't do Zoom in any room in the building.
Well, yes, the other side of that though is all of our desktops should be coming with microphones and cameras.
Correct.
nowadays. Why we haven't been ordering them that way especially on the new ones.
That's
When
true.
they do
Doesn't
my
make any
department,
sense.
I'm gonna insist on that. I mean, it's-
Absolutely.
So
Oh,
that's some of
yeah.
our issue too, is we have outdated equipment. There are other ways to do that. You could buy a separate camera. At one time, they were very hard to get a hold of. It's becoming a little bit easier to get those now. I mean, in March,
Mine
You
has
couldn't-
speakers, but no
you had a
camera.
backlog of
Mhm.
5 months to get something like that. But
I think
they're
he's-
starting to become more
I
ready.
think what I've seen now coming in has
Just
cameras.
plug and play, yeah.
And then I think that, for people who got newer PCs without them, they've got the cameras, or he was trying to get them outfitted with that, so everybody would have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got 2 laptops that are old, 2014, that have the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I know.
Yeah, the laptops always seem to come with
Yeah.
that automatically,
Yeah.
but when they ordered the monitors with PCs, they didn't.
Some of it, to be fair, the county at one time was against Wi-Fi, and it was against some of those things because it was felt employees would misuse them.
Well, the world changed like
Gotta do
this.
it with times, yeah.
So now we can't do that.
So it's not, again, it wasn't just oversight
Yeah.
that we don't have, so some of it was conscious decision.
And we could block that, we could check, you know, that I'm playing
I know.
Pac-Man for 17 hours.
Oh, yeah.
I can run, but I can't hide because I got my Chromebook, my iPhone, my iPad. I can get Zoom, all 3 of those virtual platforms anywhere
Well,
now.
and everybody has smartphones, so. what's-
Correct. Yeah.
So for sure, we want to begin work on the airport, although that's a different issue. The courthouse parking lot
Yep.
will begin
Yeah.
work. The Riddle and nursing home roof.
Yep.
Yep.
The motor pool fuel tanks.
Yep.
The Pretty Glen Dam.
Yep.
The dog warden roof.
Yep.
Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And then the Board of Elections, when they come in, if it is around 20,000, there will be a possibility.
Sounds like
for
a
that.
big successful year.
$20,000.
Station 30 leaks, correct?
Leaks, the roof leaks.
Yeah,
I don't see anything.
So
in that.
I'd like to bring Ryan in,
okay.
because we've got Station 30, he's got the sheriff's department. They sound like they're busting at the seams. And then we got that motor building.
Well, and one of the things that the sheriff, he's starting to take over the dispatch contracts.
Correct.
You know, they took over a group last year, which means dispatch is gonna need expanded.
Right.
We need to make sure we have that conversation, because again, if they want to expand, we need to know so that 4 years from now, we're ready for that
They
to
do,
happen.
they do, and they've talked about they're gonna need another dispatcher space, and they don't have
Right.
room for that. I
You know,
know.
their dispatch base is very small compared
For those
to-
huge counters,
For
got
as
three.
big as that facility
Yeah.
is, it does
Yeah.
not seem like it's
Yeah.
proportionate
No,
to.
no,
I think,
they're like in there like sardines.
and they're growing, I mean, they're growing and over the 25, 30 years that building's been
Well,
there.
they have requests pending for even more of the communities wanting to do what
Yes.
just happened. So again, that comes in the conversation of use of buildings.
Right.
Is it possible EMA ends up somewhere else? In which case, while you're repairing buildings, does it make sense to add a half roof to get something under roof? I mean, those are all things that need to start coming together as we begin talking. You have, around 2 million sitting in the additional sales tax fund. I already recommended we use 1.5 million of that for the radios, the Marks radios that need replaced this year.
I thought we already did that.
No, it's coming. You guys decided that, yeah, that would be a good use, but we haven't got the quote yet on those.
Oh,
But
okay.
that would leave around possibly 600, 700,000, let's call it 600,000 right now, in the additional sales tax fund. That if you needed to do some renovations for dispatch and or doing something to get EMA to a new location so that they can use that portion. I mean, you do have that money that was intended for the Justice Center's functionality, and that, to me, that's a project
Yeah.
that contributes to their functionality.
What about, okay, so you're saying that we could use that. What about the 911 funds? Would they be able to help with any of that? or-
A capital project of that nature, no. Now, that will buy the desk and equipment, which, I mean, they have one position,
That's
probably talking a
expensive,
$15,000 to $20,000 investment in terms of the desk, the monitors, the cab, and all that type of stuff. That it would pay for that, the operating side of it, but not like capital remodeling or anything like that.
But that would help.
That'd be very helpful.
Because I thought we also funded some of the 911 coordinators' salary or something from the.
60,000, I think roughly right now it's around 78,000 that we pay, and 60,000 of it was being funded from that.
Okay.
Not all of it, that board needs to meet again. It's been 3 years, I think, since it's met, but that's a different.
You know, Todd, I had all those on my list that you mentioned. However, I had the roof on Riddle and Market Center as a question mark. Did we decide to go forward with that?
Well, on
I think we're gonna
Riddle,
wait and see. I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
get some
get
kind of an
quotes.
idea on
Okay.
pricing because we didn't have that much money left.
Okay,
Yeah.
and also I've got a question mark, elevators, admin building.
Yeah,
That's the
I'm
same
gonna go
thing.
back and check. When we,
Quotes on that.
yeah, because that is something that does go down, we have to do. So that's why I was thinking, even if it's not in this year's plan, the 3-year plan to start doing
3, 5 year,
ones.
yeah.
Because like I said, I was here the other day and 2 of the 3 were not working.
Are we giving up
They
on the
were backdoor
prosecutor's
springs.
leave?
I think, when I was there the other day, he said, well, I don't think we're ever gonna get that thing fixed. I think that might be back burners, their phones, he didn't want right now, but that's in a 2 or 3 year plan.
But again, I bring this up because we're gonna spend money fast over the next 3 years.
Correct.
Either you're gonna wait 5 years and Vic's gonna say, my system's broken, pump up $1 million, and you're gonna scramble to find it, or you do it while you have the money to make sure it gets done and can get done right. That's the only thing, and I know Vic wants it to go as long as possible, but the other side of that is the funding. Do you get this in while you have this money, or do you wait and then some future board is gonna be scrambling? But I don't need an answer to that, but I just put that
I'll
out
reach
there.
out to Vic, and maybe. he
And it doesn't need to be this
Michelle
year, but within the
to
next
talk
couple
about
of years,
phone
does it make sense to get it out of the way?
Are you, Joanne?
Amber Alert.
If we could try to get him to consider, or at least start looking into them to
Because he can
understand.
buy what he wants, he doesn't have, he's so
Yeah,
panicked, I guess, about going to what we have, we don't have to do that, but
No.
something, but
because
they're
like JFS is not on the same, they're on the state system.
on the Cincinnati bill. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe Joanne, you and I can maybe set up a time with Vic or something to maybe see if we can start looking at the different phones. I mean, we understand, but our concern is we're not gonna be able to get parts and then all of a sudden he has to have them and where's the money?
Is there anything out there, Todd, that's kind of like what he's got, but it's a newer
Yeah,
version, or would that be acceptable then, or?
well, that's, right now, again, just getting him to kind of look and see what is out there. Again, I think he thinks that it's gonna be our option, and I've kind of indicated, Vic, you don't have to go with what we did, you're kind of a standalone building there. I know Lloyd, Joanne gets, yeah, but Lloyd's brought up the fact that the Justice Center probably needs phones too. I don't know if it makes sense to do the 2 together or to do them separately. And that may be.
The sheriff's office?
That may be a 5-year or 6-year away, neither one of these need done this year, but they should be.
Justice Center being sheriff.
Right, yeah.
They
I
didn't
don't-
get new phones when we did?
Oh, no, they got phones after we did.
Oh,
Their phone system's relatively new, that's why Lloyd and I don't see eye to eye necessarily on that one.
Why, is it a different kind of phone?
It's different setup than what we have here, yeah, they didn't, when we morphed to the MyTel system that we've got here, they were okay with what they had at the time or whatever, and then afterwards, we got them but they had something different where they have an operator kind of thing where everybody has an extension off of it versus how we have direct dial in
Okay.
here.
I was just
But,
saying,
Yeah, I mean,
What do they want?
and if they're experiencing problems with their phone system out there, they're not saying anything.
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
I just know that every now and then, we just got an email, the lines are down. Do we know why that is?
Dispatching.
Then that doesn't have anything to do with.
Do
their
with
line.
ours?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
It takes
because
that.
we just got something from, I think, Daniel Young last week, and I'm like, oh my goodness, to have that now is not good, but
Weather
they have a
plays,
non-emergency line.
weather plays a funky thing with everything out on our River Road a lot of times too. And the systems go down out there because of the way.
If you get mad at them, there's a telephone pole in the corner, you just hit that,
Yeah.
the whole thing's down.
It wipes out basically the whole, yeah. Or what Lake Rockwell, I think it is.
Yeah.
and-
That telephone pole holds everything.
It does.
So I think we got a good 1 year. We don't need to keep weekly discussions, but I would hate for 6 months to go by without
How about a couple weeks?
starting to look at then what is our 3 to 10 year. And part of that begins the discussions of well, what is our long-term use for each facility, and do we have growth or contraction of departments, that type of thing.
But to go back to Vicky's question, was Riddle on this with the engineering with the roofs?
Quotes for
Quotes.
Riddle and.
I'm getting the quotes so that we know
Thank you.
whether we can afford to pay.
If we can change
And quotes on the elevators.
Correct.
Quotes on the elevator.
And then I also did want to mention to you guys that, in a conversation I had with Jill, she's paid for the remodeling of her area up on the second floor. And she wanted to have some additional work done for COVID prevention, since this is going on, that she's willing to pay for.
Mhm.
And I said, well, I can't imagine that the board will have any problem with that, especially if it's nothing that was considered the first time around. I just want to mention it, that she's moving forward,
Okay.
making sure.
What
it
is she
gets
gonna
done.
do now?
For COVID.
There's an area where it was like an empty alcove or something that they're going to be able to be built out so that the people aren't touching.
So by down at the end, by the courtroom, there was a place that people could sit. They didn't do anything there.
Second floor?
Yep.
Yep, that's exactly where
Yep,
she's talking then. So, and I said, well, you might as well, because I don't know when COVID's gonna be away.
We have to say, Jill's been very due diligent with her funds and paying for
Absolutely.
anything she's ever done. I
Yeah.
mean,
And that's why I said, she reached out about the records. She's great to work with. Absolutely.
yeah,
Fantastic.
she is.
All right.
Thank you, guys. This sounds like a great start.
We got a plan.
Tony, that roof, you said it bounces over there?
Huh?
That's the way it's supposed to be. It's a rubber roof.
A rubber roof, yeah. I was gonna use it as a trampoline, but Shannon yelled at me. Matter of fact, she grabbed me by the back collar and said, no.
She was fearing a worker comp claims.
Yeah, then you'll have to yeah.
Bye, guys. Thank
All
you.
right.
Hey, Todd, do you want me to give Homer a call regarding so you said you had the liabilities and assets. Do you need an updated list
So you
for
want
the
to
airport?
Thanks for calling, Jan.
I don't think so.
Yes.
The name of the person in one of the hangars may have changed, but the fact that that's being
Really,
leased,
do I
but they're
have
only
to?
monthly
60
leases.
60 some checks last
So
And
there
then
is
what
a-
about the
Oh my God,
adopt a
you're busy.
resolution?
I know.
and
See you later.
intent
Okay, we'll see you.
To dissolve. I don't know if they
You
have
have to get
someone.
one from them first.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm
Yes.
asking, but
The
I
word
don't
intent.
know.
They're gonna need it written.
They're gonna need it written.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And so that's why I'm asking, because I've been on this for quite some time, but I'm like,
Okay, so we're gonna need to write it from them. I mean, is that what you're saying?
We'll have to give them what to pass, which is
Yeah,
usually
okay.
how we.
and they will, yeah, yeah.
Last week you had said something about the hangars and Bonner had said, hey, give people plots of land and they can rent it. So for 30 years. And you'd said, hey, that put us in the same hole.
Mhm.
So we want to build hangars ourselves so we.
Yes, and
we
rent.
could
Well,
rent.
So there's a lot of land.
Mhm.
What you want to do is maintain some core revenue
Mhm.
for the airport itself,
Mhm.
that it can function.
Mhm.
And, there's two sources. There's fees,
Mhm.
which he brought up the fact if you land in Cleveland, it's $250. If you land in Portage County, you don't tell anyone, you don't pay anything.
So that's going to change.
So either you raise the use fees, and
Mhm.
that's how the airport generates
Right.
its money, or you have painters that you get rent from.
Yeah.
Right now, the rent of painters is our primary source of revenue. If we're gonna continue that
Yeah.
source, we need to expand that bank.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean every hangar though ever needs owned by the
Has to.
airport. So in the future, as places expand, and that's part of how you attract businesses, is you do let them build their own facility that they control. One of the issues we had is the board would sign 50-year contracts for $500 a year.
Yeah.
That was a lot of money in the 70s. So you need to write them so that there's,
So-
escalation clauses.
Yeah. So if we had an airport manager that understands how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then the other thing is do we want to set up a meeting with Bonner, or do you think we should start looking
Well, I
about?
think you need to get the airport board to pass that resolution. I
Okay.
think that you should have an estimate done of his facilities, just
that
as
was
due
gonna be my
diligence on our
next
side,
Mhm.
and then you can
When
reach
would
out
we
to
get to
him.
do that, Todd?
That's easy. Joanne has a list of people that connect. It's only the business. I mean,
Yeah,
you know.
but it's
um,
the facility too. because
Well,
he
the
owns-
facilities, that's kind of a unique situation. Technically, the facilities in 50 years are the county's, once the lease runs out. So you're buying the use, you're buying 30 years worth of use. You're not necessarily buying the whole facility, if that makes sense.
Because in 30 years, it
It
would
would have
come to us
reverted to you,
anyways.
you know.
So we're just paying like. the
So we have some
usage.
equity right now.
So to speak, yeah. So again, if it's, and then we'd have to dig back. I think they're 15 to 20 years into the 50 years. But all those leases had where at that time then it reverts to the airport's ownership, the building and everything. Which again, isn't necessarily the best way because you're taking over all the elderly facilities that require a lot of maintenance. So that's not something to count on. But anyway, that plays a role into the purchase prices and whatnot.
And then Tom, I think Thursday, I think we got a pretty full schedule. But another thing that we need to talk about is, which always amazes me, but it happens every year. We just approved a budget in December. And now all of a sudden we have all these people wanting extra positions and everything else. And it's like,
Have we got a list of that? haven't
I
seen
can
it.
work you up a list,
yeah,
and this goes back to when I first started, that was one of the issues that the board had. And the board at the time did a very good job of saying, I'm sorry, this is a 2022 request now, this is a 2022 request now. The more the board does that, the more seriously the entities will take the budgeting process. The more the board awards these things after the fact, the more people are just gonna ignore your budgeting process and always come after the fact. Because the
we
truth
shouldn't be
is,
dealing with
it's
this right
often
now.
easier to get a yes out of the board and on an individual basis than it is when you're looking at the
At
whole
the whole
package.
budget.
But truthfully, the whole package is how you should look at it because,
That is true, that
you need
calmed down for a few years, I mean, it did.
yeah,
We need to
because
go back to that.
the
it's
board said, I'm sorry,
ridiculous.
we'll put this on the 2022, the next,
Yeah.
we understand your need, but this is gonna be a 20, because every elected official, not a single one of them wanted to meet with you guys at the end of last year. All of them indicated, we're fine with these numbers, and now we're getting these requests pouring in. So that's just my thought. You guys can handle it how you want, but
I think we need to go back to how it was done because
Thought about how many requests we got, I mean, you don't have to give me an exact number.
Different departments.
well, including your departments and everyone, I mean, we probably have 6 or 7 requests on the books right now for close to 150,000. At least, I mean, the sheriff is coming in Thursday, that's gonna be a big one.
Well, And that's the only one that they weren't here to negotiate
Right,
their contract. I
Right.
mean, there's a little bit of different thought process. I think.
true, although the size of it may suggest
Could
that
be.
it needs to try to be worked into the next year.
Yeah.
when you met with the sheriff, well, you didn't meet with the sheriff, you met with Ralph and Dave
Dave.
Flair. Did you tell them that they have like $1 million that they need to try
That
to
was brought up
absorb?
at that time,
in their
and
budget?
I did meet with Sheriff Doak and Sheriff Zukowski were at a meeting in December because Sheriff Doak invited him in. And that was mentioned at that time as well, that the board had agreed to continue funding that, but the idea was, so, our plan was that costs would go down, their plan is that they want a little bit more, that's a lot. Even though this may be a little and that was a little, the two together add up to a sizable
Yeah.
change.
I'm missing
from what we
that conversation. I don't understand this conversation.
So, let me see.
Sit down, stay a while.
Well, I don't want to seem rude, but so at the end of 2020, there was a debate over the additional sales tax money, of which almost 800,000 is sheriff's salary. And, Kathleen wanted to cut that 100% and have them figured out now.
Well, I think the reason for that, though, let me give you some background,
Mhm.
because we had provided 400,000 for operational expenses for Sheriff Doak. And we were very concerned about that because operational expenses do not stop when the sales tax stops.
Right.
And so I think Kathleen's reasoning was, we were supposed to stop this when the sales tax
Right.
stopped. But because we had a new sheriff, we thought, well, let's see.
Well,
What do you
And
know?
that's what
but
the
in all
board-
fairness, though, the current sheriff at the time knew that he had 5 years that he was supposed to absorb that cost into his budget because it was only a 5-year levy.
Well,
And
but
it
there
was
was
never
also talk
done.
that it was gonna go to the voters. I mean, there was a lot of confusion, which is part
Yeah.
of why my recommendation was let them have this year,
And then
but
give them a
be clear
year.
with them on what the expectations are. And that's part of where hopefully between the meeting Thursday and then the conversations that follow, the board comes up with its clear plan and then the sheriff is filled in on that clear plan. But again, if you're talking, 300,000 to 400,000 that we were planning on coming up, maybe even more, and he's thinking that he needs more, you know, the two together combined to a significant change from what we were originally planning, just a month ago. And so those are things for the board to consider as we proceed.
Well, yeah, and to get on the same page, because
But again, part of my argument last year, and I sincerely believe it, is there wasn't a clear message. And so it seemed to be unfair to spring it.
Right.
But
and we hadn't
we
had
need
Sheriff
to, we need
Dogan
to
in
get that
2
clear
years to
message, and we need
discuss
to get
it.
it here by hopefully the end of March. Because it is gonna take time to implement whatever changes we do, whether it's expansion or detraction. It's gonna take time to implement, so we need to get that plan by the end of March so that we have the rest of 2021 to do it, so that we aren't sitting here in 2022 saying, well, what do we do?
Well, you know, I think the new sheriff is really wanting to address them being underpaid. We've heard that for years and years and years, but I think he's determined to make it happen. So that's,
Well, and you know what, and he can do that, but understand there's only so much money, so that means he's gonna have to offset those increases somewhere.
Well, that's what the board needs to lay out once it has the information.
Yeah,
Todd, over the last 5 years, the sheriff's budget is about 13 million, 13 and a half. In the last 5 years, how much does that total number change in the past 5 years? Was it
Well,
12 million or 11 million?
So if you talk, so they were around 11 million, a little over 10 and a half. The sheriff's gotten two significant increases. One was when the sales tax initiated, he was given almost 600,000 to institute additional road patrol and additional corrections officers. And the idea of additional road patrol was that was going to help it pass with the voters, but it's always stayed. The second big increase he got was last year when the board added $1 million for him to hire 15 corrections officers.
was it $1 million or $500,000?
It was $1 million for a year,
Okay,
because you only had part of the year to one.
and
year.
that was for the 15 corrections officer, because we were opening up the new pod.
Consistently, the sheriff's unions have gotten 2 and 2.5%, when the rest of the county has gotten 0 and 1%. So they have always fared better in that sense than the rest of the county. And that is a source of
Contention? Yeah, I could see that. So their budget over the last 5 or 6 years has gone from about 11 million to about 13 million.
I could get that for exactly.
Yeah, and then
But what
the
is it this year?
So-
It's not 13, what is it?
I
13.
want to say it's just over 13.
Yeah,
I
that's okay.
I haven't looked. I got my mind's full of numbers from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
meeting.
I can't imagine. So, but then you keep saying the money from the sales tax. So with
So-
that started, that's hard to get rid of if, isn't it?
Well, so again, the additional sales tax started 5 years ago.
Correct.
The sheriff was given, the idea was one post, which is roughly 5.3 people. And the idea was if the voters voted it down, then that would be removed. And that was the talk at the time. Because that is not a mandated service, that is an additional luxury, and if the voters don't want to pay for it, then we're happy to remove it. So it has become part of their normal operation, so to speak. However, there was always the caveat of, well, this is where we were just 5 years ago, we only had this level. And so if we go back down to that, we're where we were. Again, the ballot and all that got sidetracked, so the whole plan kind of fell apart in the last 2 years. And really hasn't been replaced with anything, and that's part of why my discussions now of, let's take this year to get a plan back in order so that we know how to proceed.
That sales tax, it was 5 million a year.
The quarter percent is 5 million.
Quarter percent is 5 million.
You can do 0.1% now. which
Now, I heard
wasn't
that last year they
available
changed it, right?
today.
Just
Yeah.
last year, we could,
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
they switched, 19.
So and a tenth is around 2 million.
How does the sales tax go permanent? By voters?
Well, so you can set any time frame you want. We could have done it as a continuous even 5 years ago. The board specifically did 5 years because we had estimated the cost of the jail, et cetera.
And the jail, the file.
The board itself can choose to impose, or it can choose to go to the ballot, and it sets the parameters for what that is about. So you could put a 5-year on and it gets voted on every 5 years. You could put a continuous on and it gets voted once. Obviously, continuous is harder to get yes votes for. A
Mhm.
5-year that we come back to you, the voters buy into that a little bit more. I mean, there's goods and bads to both processes. If the commissioners would impose it by an emergency decree, the voters do have an opportunity to take it off then, in which case they file a petition. If the petition is
Referendum.
successful, then there's a referendum and you have to hold off on collections until the referendum is complete. And that goes to the next election. So if you imposed it today, we'd already missed the March, it would go to November's. You would then start actually collecting money in April of 2022.
Okay. I'll ask you when my head's clear and then ask you that question again.
And it's a similar, the other option you have is property tax. Counties have both property tax and sales tax available to them. The property tax is nice because you can fit it more closely to an amount. Sales tax comes in $2 million chunks,
Okay.
whereas a property tax you could do for 500,000.
Yeah, but you know what? People do not like it on property tax.
Yeah,
They're
And you know
both
what?
tough sells. They're both tough
Well,
sells.
sales tax is more evenly spread, because even if I don't own a property,
Yeah.
I live in Portage, I'm gonna pay sales tax.
And all hell broke loose, unfortunately, with the new property tax things.
Yeah.
Last year or the year before. So everybody's still shell shocked from that.
Oh,
But the
I
sales
think
tax is
sales tax is the
the
way to
least,
go, but I'm
least
pretty
intrusive because you got
Yeah.
other
Well,
people.
it's the
coming
most
in.
evenly spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can get you the map, but probably half the counties in the state at least are above 7.
Right.
Um,
What are we at now?
We're right at
We're
7
right at
now.
Without the quarter.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
'cause
it's
it fell off.
mostly the southern that are below, almost every county, the exception of Stark County. Stark County is 6 3/4. Every other county around us though is 7 1/4.
Cuyahoga is 8.
Cuyahoga is 8
Yeah,
1/4.
yeah.
Franklin
8 1/4,
County
yeah.
is 8 1/2. No, Cuyahoga is 8 1/2. Franklin County is 8 1/4. So the surrounding area is all higher than us, which again, if you talk 1/10 or 2/10, we would still be below those counties.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go, 1/4% would be the way to go, so
Yeah.
we can actually make a difference by utilizing
Yeah.
that money.
So that's the way you sell it is we are lower than a
Yeah.
lot of other areas right now. Without it.
Say that again, if the commissioners were to impose that,
Mhm. The
from
voters
there.
have a chance to file a petition.
if that's all 3 or 2, or does it matter?
So if all 3 of you do it, they get 1 chance to file. If only 2 of you do it, I believe they can do
Every
it
year.
every year.
Okay.
But they
You
file a
can't impose
petition.
it tax with just 2 commissioners, can you?
No,
That's
here's the
why
way,
you have the
Todd,
referendum.
Todd, you've got it mixed up. If all 3 of us vote to impose it, there's no referendum. If only 2 of us approve it, then they have a right to a referendum and they can overturn it.
I believe even with the
Or-
3, they can overturn it.
I don't,
So, but they only get 1 chance to do so.
No,
I can
So,
dig out
yeah,
the
could you tell me what a referendum means?
voter.
Okay,
they
it has
have
to
the
go to
right
the
to
vote.
overturn our
So that's where you
decision.
were talking about, it would have to go to March or
Yes.
November.
So,
Got
and sometimes it's an automatic referendum and sometimes it's a petition. Meaning
Okay.
the public has to file a petition, and if the petition is successful, then it goes to ballot.
Okay.
Uh,
So
Gotcha.
when we imposed, the last time, there was no petition that successfully was turned in.
And we
So it
had
never
several
did.
meetings and nobody came but us.
Yeah.
And that's what I've, heard. I mean, that's what I heard. Okay, yeah. right.
I can get that outline dug back
Yeah.
out. It's been 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thought process. Thanks, thank you. Thanks for answering all the questions.
All right, now next Tuesday, I don't think we have anything, so we don't have to meet next Tuesday, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I was just starting to have fun.
Yeah, yeah, it'll need a week to, I'll work on the airport stuff with Todd and the crew.
I think this is a really productive meeting, especially if we actually keep pushing this rowboat going.
Well, you have to.
Somebody told me about a rudder
because-
being stuck, and I think we're moving in the right direction to get many things that need to be done. It's a great place to start. And this is maybe the wrong place, and correct me if it is. So that money that we have, would it not be a good idea? Because I'm in business, if I had a big chunk of money, I would think it would take in about 50% of it and utilizing 50% put someplace else. But taking some of that money and putting it for a rainy day salary, like 2 week period, take that away and put that 102 million someplace that if we got in trouble, that we would have.
Oh, we always have a contingent, we always have.
And it's 750,000 and it's 1.2 million for 2-week pay. To fund that a little bit more, so we always knew that if all hell broke loose, we'd have a.
Tony, we always have to
Okay.
have like 5 to 6 million, Todd says.
Okay, and we
Yeah.
have that.
We have a rainy day fund.
That's
It's
all I
called
need to know.
Commissioners Other or Contingency.
Okay.
I know a place you can put it, and I'll take care of it for you.
I was thinking about my back pocket. No, I haven't, when you buy dinner, maybe.
You know, I don't know why you guys are worried about giving the sheriff part of money.
Excuse me?
The trend in the United States is to be funded.
Yeah. Yeah,
All right, is
Yes.
there anything else to come before the board?
no,
Everybody doesn't think that way, Bruce.
Okay.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I don't.
Okay, I'll
A lot
second.
of
Julie,
people
roll
think
call.
that.
We motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we got it.
Vicky,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes,
Sabrina.
Yes.
nice.
All right.